Hi, my name is Paul Marsh. I'm here today with a tip about Microsoft Bot Framework. Today we'll be talking about state. So if you haven't been following my tutorials, I'll give you a quick overview of what this demo is. So let's run this. All we're going to be doing here as we start this conversation is you say a little term in here. It's going to start this dialog, Angry Questions dialog. We're going to use an accessor pattern to get our user profile accessor. We're going to grab that state, and that state is currently null, which is what we expect. We're just going to set the options, the word we pulled in, hi, and then we are going to say, I'm glad we asked about that, and use the state to output that. So we'll come back in here. I typed in hi, glad you asked me about hi, you send that, you say no, and the dialog will finish. Okay, so a problem with this is that the accessor pattern means that you will probably want to create an accessor for every dialog. And that is quite a maintenance headache, and it also means that you're going to have lots of little state islands dotted around. So if you have 100 dialogs, you could well have 100 little state islands in your state store. Now, version 3 didn't do that. Version 3 uses a mechanism where only the active dialog contains the state of whatever dialog it's using, and then once the active dialog goes away, then that state goes away, pretty much. So there's a not so dirty little secret in that we can still do that in version 4, and I'll show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is create a little generic class to support this. I'm going to call this, what should we call this? Base class, no, base dialog class. At least give it some reference. Okay, and this needs to be a component dialog. And it's going to moan about that. So let's add the references. Now I want to explain to this base dialog what kind of state it needs to store. So I'm going to put that in as a templated item as well. So let's create a constructor for that. I can never remember the where syntax, where t is a class and it's new. That's it. Yep, great. So then we can do property, I'll type t, and we'll call it state. Let's be good citizens and make this protected. Okay, so we've now got that. That's brilliant. So we can store our state in there. So the trick into making it work like v3 is to do some overriding. So we're going to override begin dialog, and we're going to override continue. So when we start, what we want to do is we want to initialize state. And then when we continue, we want to fetch our state. Fetch state. So let's just create that. Okay, do a little bit of tidying up. So we're going to say that this dot state equals new type t. Okay, and then we want to save that state away. Let's just create another little class here. And this is where the trick is. So we need to do this on the dialog context. So we need to make sure that that dialog context is available to us. So this dialog context equals out of DC. And we also need to do that in the continue. So every time we come in here, we'll make sure that our context is stored away. So save. So if we look at our context, our dialog context, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's an active dialog. So if the active dialog does not equal null, which is a little belt and braces thing. Then we can do this dialog context, active dialog, and here we have the state. So we can call it our object state key here. We use that, and that is going to equal this dot state. And if that state's null, maybe we just want a little belt and braces thing here, just in case. Paranoia. Okay, so fetch is going to work in a similar way. In fact, I'm just going to copy and paste that out of here. Let's go and grab that. So, okay, probably want to use a try. And our key is object. You should use constants for this, right? But I'll try and get the object. We want to get it. Unfortunately, it is an object, so we just have to say current state. And here. Okay, and this is an if. So if we get some state, then we can make that state equal to the thing we want. And again, just as a little belt and braces thing. If we don't have anything in there, create an empty one. Excuse me. Right, so, okay, that's the state part of it. So let's just build, make sure I haven't made any crazy mistakes. Looking good. So we go back to angry questions. So the idea here is I'm selling this on the idea that you don't need any accessors. So let's get rid of it. Goodbye. So that means I can't set it here. Right, so here we are, we're setting it. So we can't do any of this work here. Let's get rid of that. But we do still want it to save the state. So we can do this dot state. Whoops. This dot state. Aha, hang on. I haven't actually done anything here. So we should call it base dialog class. And we want to put our existing state in there, which is question state. So that's nice and easy. So now we can say this dot state dot original intent. So there we are. We don't have to change much of our code at all. So we just set it there. We're coming in here. Something else is trying to use it. Let's just put a breakpoint in there just to show it's working. We can't get the current state from there. That doesn't work. So it's just to save typing. Current state equals this dot state. That's what it should say. I'm glad about it. Let's get it from the state. And we're going to come in here and we're going to prompt. Nothing to do there and nothing particularly to do there. So let's see how we get on with that. Let's run that. Have I made any mistakes? Okay, so let's just dump high again in here. It's probably not good because it's the state. Right, so the original state is null, but it hasn't blown up and done anything weird. We're going to put high in there. I'm glad you asked me about high. So it works. Great. And let's just do some little additional tests just to show you a little bit more what's going on. So in our prompt here, we'll just set some more state. So we'll just say this dot state dot time answered equals state time now. So just put the breakpoint in here. So let's run it up again. Type in boo. Right, so got our original intent, null, putting boo in there. Let's just hit a 5, go down to here. So time answered is just defaulting to that time. And we can have a quick look at what's going on here. So let's have a look at this. We can have a look at our dialog context, which is hidden away in our base class. Here's active dialog. Here's our state. We've got our question state under object key. And we can see that it's got a value and time answered is there. So we'll keep this up and just step over this. So you can see that the dialog context active dialog.state has now been changed just by doing that. So just run through that. That's fine. And just one last thing, just to prove that that state is getting here. Let's just output that. Let's stick that in the message. Last time changed. Not sure what that means, but there we go. This dot state dot time answered. So let's just run through that to the breakpoint. Oh, well, okay, leave the breakpoint on. It's actually quite good. We can pause then a little bit. So type in something. Right. Okay, so something goes in here. We're now setting the time to time answered 10:05:20. So I'll hang around for that, to be honest. Let's just put a breakpoint in here. No. So the time answered is still saying 20. It's going to output that. 20. So there we go. So there is an alternative to using state accessors, which is a bit more like version 3. So if you're doing porting, that might be helpful. And maybe it's a bit easier. As an end of this thing, I would just say that you can still use accessors. I'm not saying accessors are bad. They have their uses, definite pros and cons, but this is an alternative that you might want to consider using. Okay, thanks for listening.